This week in Idaho. Idaho's abortion trafficking law is upheld in court. A power shift occurs in the Idaho Senate. The debate about the Bible in schools continue. That and so much more. This is the Yocal Idaho Midweek Report, where we give you a quick overview of the news in Idaho for the last week. Glad to have you back with us here today. Decided to be a little bit festive and put my cardigan on. Hopefully I'm giving a little bit of a Mr. Rogers feel there. But in any case, something that isn't as homely but is necessary to talk about. Idaho's controversial abortion trafficking law, enacted in 2023, if you hadn't heard about it, has been largely upheld by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Yes. This groundbreaking legislation criminalizes assisting or transporting minors out of state for abortions without parental consent, carrying a potential 5-year prison sentence. The court's decision overturned a previous lower court's ruling, because lower courts have a habit lately, allowing Idaho to enforce most of the law. Most being the key word there is one caveat. The appeals court blocked the provision that made it illegal to recruit minors for abortions, citing First Amendment concerns on that one. This particular victory for Idaho lawmakers has continued to fuel the debate about reproductive right and states' boundaries, especially after the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Particularly Attorney General Rao Labrador has hailed the decision as a tremendous victory, end quote, emphasizing the law's intent to protect both unborn children and their mothers. Critics, however, argue that the law infringes on individuals' rights and may endanger vulnerable minors seeking healthcare. But tying it all together in a bow, as Idaho enforces this unprecedented law, its impact on neighboring states with more lenient abortion laws remains to be seen, which you know the states we're talking about, potentially setting the stage for further legal battles, especially with different institutions that rely on abortions or states. And speaking of the Idaho legislature, the Idaho legislative leadership underwent some significant changes this last week, with the Republican House and Senate caucus electing new leadership for the most part, but we'll get into that a little bit more. In the House particularly, Mike Moyle retained his position as Speaker, while Jason Monks became Majority Leader. And then switching over to the Senate, the very prestigious part of Idaho's legislature, it saw Kelly Anton rising to the President Pro Temp, with Lori Den Harting taking the Majority Leader role. But overall, looking at all of this, there's a couple notable things. The first being that 3 sophomore legislatures secured leadership positions, indicating a little bit of a shift towards newer voices rather than the usually tried and true, more older ones. You gotta do your time. And then secondly, the new leadership in both chambers shows higher than average Freedom Index scores for the people being elected, which if you don't know what that is, a scoring system done by the Idaho Freedom Foundation. You can go look at it. But continuing, this is very interesting compared to their predecessors. It does suggest a potentially more conservative / libertarian tilt occurring in the Senate there. But with all these changes, there are some conservative activists that are disappointed about Anton's victory over Doug Okonovich in the Senate Pro Temp election, which that's to be expected anywhere in politics. But moving forward, the leadership elections and subsequent committee assignments have set the stage for the 68th Idaho legislature, with observers noting key changes in important committees like JFAC and education, which, if you don't know what JFAC is, it has to do with financials, and education is self-explanatory. And speaking about legislation, and something that was our top story last week, and a little bit of a new development, in a move that has been very controversial, the Idaho Family Policy Center is pushing for daily Bible readings in public schools. The proposed Public School Sponsored Bible Reading Act would require students to hear about 20 verses from the King James Bible each day, which would total up to them completing the entire text in over a decade. Specifically, for their part, the Idaho Family's position on it, Blaine Gonzatti, the center's president, argues that this practice would instill virtue and morality in students, echoing the beliefs of America's founding fathers. Now, with that, some people might weigh some concerns or bring some stuff up there. There are some safeguards in it. The bill includes opt-out provisions for teachers and students who object, but critics worry about potential First Amendment violations. Surprisingly, some Republican leaders have expressed reservations, while sadly others have remained silent on the issue rather than actually taking a hard stance position. But overall, this initiative is part of a broader trend, not just here in Idaho, but in Republicans in multiple states, to incorporate Christ elements in public educations. However, it has a little bit of a significant hurdle to get over, as previous Supreme Court rulings have banned school-sponsored prayer and Bible readings in public schools. All that to say, despite these challenges, Gonzatti remains confident that the proposal would withstand constitutional scrutiny, citing recent shifts in the Supreme Court's approach to church and state issues, mainly citing stuff like the Roe v. Wade overturning and a couple other cases. And speaking of another issue just as hotly debated as religion, it is the southern border. And on that, Idaho's Governor Brad Little has once again deployed the Idaho State Police, or ISP, troopers to the Texas-Mexico border. This time, 13 troopers from ISP's Domestic Highway Enforcement Team are on a mission to assist Texas authorities in combating drug and human trafficking. The deployment, which began on Sunday, December 1st, will last until about mid-December, but digging in a little bit into what exactly all they're going to be doing down there, the troopers will be working alongside the Texas Department of Public Safety to intercept traffickers and gain valuable experience in the latest smuggling tactics. Upon their return, they will share their knowledge with other ISP and local law enforcement agencies here in Idaho so they can have a better understanding of how to deal with it here, because a lot of it comes from there. Specifically on that, and a little bit of a precursor, Governor Hill has emphasized the importance of this mission, citing the rise in human trafficking reports and record seizures across the country. He stated that much of this illegal activity can be traced back to the cartels exploiting the southern border. So moving forward, this deployment is part of Governor Little's ongoing efforts to address border security issues and protect Idaho communities from the impact of cross-border criminal activities, which simply is to say, if we can know what's going on at the border and help, maybe we can cut down some of the crime that comes from it that comes all the way here to Idaho, because it really does. Which, if you like that first batch of stories here and the Midweek Report as a whole, do us a favor and hit the like button on YouTube, Rumble, or Twitter. Helps us reach folks who love Idaho just like you. We talked about religion, we've talked about politics, and now we're talking about health stuff, the two biggest things right now in 2020. Specifically with the Central District Health CDH has launched an investigation into tuberculosis case at the Meridian High School. Specifically, and giving it a little bit more context, a Treasure Valley resident who attended the school between August and November was diagnosed with it, prompting health officials to take ready action to that. While there are no ongoing risks at the school, and they want to stress that, the CDH is working to identify and test individuals who may have been exposed. The West Ada School District is cooperating with health officials to ensure students and staff safety. But for those of us that are a bit younger like myself or others that just don't know what TB is, it is a contagious bacterial disease primarily affecting the lungs and can be treated and cured with proper medication. The CDH has emphasized the general public is not at an increased risk, and most people exposed to TB do not become infected, so there's not a high infection rate you need to worry about there. But moving forward, if you are a little bit more worried, a free testing clinic will be held on January 2nd at the Meridian Library for those potentially exposed. The CDH will notify affected individuals directly, and only those contacted need to take action. The investigation aims to prevent further transmission and to ensure the well-being of the school community. Very encouraging to see there that they're acting on it, and hopefully those that get it get treatment and get rested up all well. And speaking about local manners and back into controversy, despite local opposition, the Caldwell City Council has approved a letter of intent for a proposed hotel project near the Rodeo grounds on Monday, December 2nd night when they had the whole approval process. The packed meeting at the City Hall saw numerous residents voicing concerns, particularly about the impact on the fairgrounds and the agricultural events that are regularly had there. Specifically diving a little bit more into it, the approval allows for further exploration of the project details, including a potential 100-room hotel on a 4.1-acre empty lot in front of the Canyon County Fairgrounds. The developer has proposed a 50-year lease at about $5,000 per year, so the city would get some revenue there. Overall, though, the public reaction with locals expressed generally disappointment about the decision. One attendee noted, though, that the letter of intent is not a final contract, but rather an agreement to explore the project further. But moving forward, the findings and details from subsequent decisions will be addressed at the future meeting, giving the community and those that didn't hear about it additional opportunities to participate in the process, which is very encouraging here, and if you're in Caldwell, that might be something you want to get on board with. And speaking of government institutions, Chief Chris Dennison presented his 90-day assessment of the Boise Police Department to the City Council on last Tuesday. Particularly in that assessment, Dennison, who took over in September, highlighted the department's impressive response times and strong staff levels. However, he did have 4 different priorities to do for the upcoming year where they could improve. Those 4 being, and number 1, enhancing training programs, improving traffic enforcement, expanding officer wellness initiatives, and optimizing professional staff roles. To solve those 4 issues, these are the solutions he's put forward. Dennison plans to implement 2 new training programs, the first being an Integrated Communications Assessment and Tactics, or ICAT, for edged weapon defense, so for people using knives and stuff to help communicate with that better. And then secondly, the Memphis model for crisis intervention. He also aims to increase the frequency of training opportunities during daily briefings for traffic enforcement. To help with that, Dennison proposed utilizing community service officers for non-criminal infractions and collaborating with the Ada County Highway District to improve road safety. He emphasized the importance of officer well-being programs, partnering with the broader Crest Foundation to address trauma experienced by law enforcement officers. And lastly, on that giant laundry list of solutions, Dennison outlined plans to expand school resource officer programs and behavioral health response teams for better service to the community within law enforcement, which, with all of that and wrapping it together, this is definitely a long list of programs and objectives to be sure, but the coming months will tell if they will help improve the Boise Police, which it's had a bit of struggle as it's been going through police chiefs. And speaking of approval of things, and back on the west end of the valley, Nampa City Council has approved a $250,000 fund for the Idaho Opportunity Fund to support, drumroll there, establishing a new tractor supply distribution center. Now, before you want to murder, why are we funding a private organization? Here's the reason behind the funding there. This is an 860,000 square foot facility that would be located on the northeast corner of Midland Boulevard and Ustick Road in Nampa. It would be designed to supply stores across the Pacific Northwest. This project also promises to create about 500 local jobs, making a significant contribution to the economy in the local area. Now, the key part is, why are we doing this? Why is the state funding going with a private business? The funding agreement, which involves both the state and city, is performance-based, focusing on milestones such as construction initiatives and job creation. So there's hopefully a little bit more incentive there, so it isn't just a blank check. While the center will be a store and distribution for various materials, including flammable liquids, and necessitating a conditional use permit, the Tractor Supply Company, known for its energy-efficient facilities, if that is a big selling mark for you, plans to maintain an open space on site by limiting parking spaces to about 500. But moving forward, the project is a unique effort between city and private businesses to help develop Nampa's role in the regional business. Time will only tell if it'll fuel Idaho's commitment to attracting and supporting new enterprise, but it will be interesting to see the results that come from it. Which, if you didn't know about any of the stories we've talked about, or friends and family that should know about this, please don't hesitate to share it. Your shares can help us spread the word about what's going on in our amazing state. And speaking of renewable things, I know, poor transition, but I'm going to work with it there. Recapping after the Boise foothills erupted in flames with the Valley Fire, which consumed a total of 9,904 acres, aerial firefighting resources were the crucial role in battling the blazes. Specifically in looking at the results from that and having a little bit of introspection, on the first day, 8 retardant tankers, 2 water scoopers, and 4 helicopters were deployed, accumulating about 68 hours of flight time at a cost of about $1.5 million. Josh Harvey, the first bureau chief for the Idaho Departments of Lands, explained that the foothills' quick-burning fuel made the fire challenging to control. Aerial resources were vital in slowing its growth because of the speed. Now, how this all ended up playing out, retardant tankers laid down long lines of fire retardant, while water scoopers skimmed Lucky Peak Reservoir, dropping about 207,000 gallons of water to extinguish the grass fires, and then the helicopters provided precise water dropping in specific hotspots. But taking away what this all means for future fire stuff, and specifically with the fire that occurred there in Boise, Harvey emphasized that while air resources were crucial, ground crews were also essential for completing extinguishing fires. The combined efforts of aerial and ground teams were crucial in protecting lives, public safety, and private property when it was so close to Boise, which is one of the most populated places in the state. And speaking of fires, and usually they occur in the forests here in Idaho, in the dense forests of Idaho, a controversy has been brewing as the U.S. Forest Service is facing accusations of overlooking crucial information about grizzly bears, which this story is not going to be talking about, but there's also a fight to get grizzly bears off the endangered list in Idaho, and there's a lot of fighting being done on those. But particularly with this one, the Gold Butterfly Project, a massive logging and road building initiative in the Bitterroot National Forest, has come under fire, a little bit of fun there, from environmental groups. Specifically, why? It's hard to tell sometimes with environmental groups. The Alliance for Wild Rockies and Native Ecosystems, try to say that 5 times fast, Council, has filed an updated lawsuit claiming that new evidence of grizzly bear presence in the Sapphire Mountains demands a more thorough environmental review. The Forest Service allegedly acknowledged verifying grizzly bear sightings, but refused to conduct additional analysis, maintaining that the project would have, quote, no effect, end quote, on the bears. The lawsuit also highlights concerns about wolverines recently listed on the endangered species list being identified in the area as well. But moving forward with the legal battle, as it unfolds, conservationists argue that the agency's reluctance to address these new findings violates federal law and threatens the delicate balance of Idaho's wilderness. Moving forward, the courts will have to decide whether proper care was given or if it was ignored. And speaking of environmentalists, another thing down here in the Treasure Valley and just to our western border, Owyhee Canyonlands, a vast, rugged, but also I would argue very beautiful landscape in eastern Oregon and western Idaho, stands as a crossroads on conservation. For a decade, efforts to protect this unique area have been ongoing. One of those main efforts most recently has been legislative attempts led by Oregon Senator Ron Wyden. His Malheur Community Empowerment for Owyhee Act, a little bit of a long one there, aims to designate over 1 million acres as wilderness. However, as the Biden presidency nears its end, a coalition called the Protect the Owyhees is pushing for a faster solution, namely a national monument designation for the area. Specifically on the designation, this pristine area, home to wildlife like most areas, and some of the darkest night skies in the country, Idaho, we have a lot of those as we've talked about last week, has conservationists worried about the potential threats for mining and industrial developments. Supporters for the project include Tim Davis of the Friends of the Owyhee, emphasizing the importance of preserving the area's remoteness and ecological value, while maintaining existing uses like grazing and recreation, so not saying it can't be used at all, but would like not to change the status quo. As the legislative process continues on this, however, the future of the Owyhee Canyonlands is being discussed, with both congressional action and presidential proclamation as potential for further protection, which, if, depending on things happen, I would just highly recommend taking a drive out there. It's very pretty this time of year, especially with snow, or especially after it rains. It's like the Grand Canyons of the southern part of the state. It's really pretty to go see. And speaking of the great outdoors and one of Idahoans' favorite things to do, Pomerelle Mountain Resort is officially open for the skiing season, welcoming enthusiasts with a fresh blanket of snow, which I know you skiers love a great deal. Over the past 3 weeks, significant snowstorms have transformed the slopes, allowing early access to the mountain. Namely, with a base depth ranging from about 14 to 20 inches, skiers are eager to hit the trails, as I can probably guess. As for the details of the resort's opening, it will be operating on the weekends until December 20th, when full weekday operations begin. Pomerelle Ski Patrol advises caution, however, particularly in tree areas as early season conditions prevail, just a little bit as they're waiting for stuff to balance out. For those looking to learn or improve their skills on the slope, the Pomerelle Snow School offers group lessons starting at 10:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. Also, there are discounted lift tickets that are available for pre-purchase online, making it a wonderful and hopefully affordable option for families this holiday season. But wrapping it together in a wonderful bow, as the excitement builds, Pomerelle promises a season filled with adventure and some stunning winter landscapes. If you haven't seen photos of it, it is beautiful up there when it's covered in snow. which, if you've made it this far in the Midweek Report, thank you so much. Probably means you love learning about Idaho, so make sure to subscribe and follow us so you don't miss any of our future Idaho content. And while you're out there on the slopes, sadly, one of the things with the modern age that can happen is you can get one of those annoying spam calls. And on that, Idaho's Attorney General Raul Labrador is doing something to fight that. He has joined a bipartisan coalition of 46 attorney generals in calling on the Federal Communications, or FCC, to strengthen its robocalling mitigation database, or RMD. The coalition aims to close a loophole that has allowed bad actors to exploit the U.S. telephone network. Telephone, you don't see that word very often. But specifically on the Idaho side of things, Labrador emphasized the need to protect Idaho citizens from fraudulent robocalls and texts by tightening access to the nation's telecommunication network. Man, that's a big word, but it's fun to say. The attorney generals are urging the FCC to implement several measures to improve the database's effectiveness. The first of those being establishing clear information requirements and submission deadlines for providers. 2, validating submitted data to flag inaccuracy or misleading information. 3, penalizing providers who submit false or inaccurate information. And 4, block non-compliant providers from operating. These proposed changes would hopefully make it more difficult for bad actors to access the U.S. telephone network, and hopefully reduce illegal robocalling reaching American consumers. But moving forward with all this, as a member of the Anti-Robocalling Litigation Task Force, which, if you didn't know that existed, you are with me there as well, Attorney General Raul Labrador remains committed to investigating and pursuing enforcement action against entities responsible for those annoying, illegal, and also very often fraudulent robocalling traffic. But speaking of something a little bit funner, the Eagle Rodeo is saddling up for a new adventure in 2025. The rodeo director Matt Whittington explained its latest move, quote, "It's all about land development. We want to maintain our small town feel while putting on a great show," end quote. Particularly, what is that? They're moving. The popular rodeo will relocate from its Highway 16 site, which was not great, to a brand new location on Chaparral Road in North Ada County. Fans can easily find the new grounds by driving past the Firebird Speedway and heading east. The new site promises familiar comforts with a layout similar to previous years. Whittington details, quote, "Bucking chutes will be on the north, tying events on the south, with bleachers on the east, west, and south, and a big screen on the north side," end quote. With all that put together, good news for attendees. The new location offers plenty of parking and designated ride-sharing spots. In the true cowboy spirit, the team is already preparing the grounds, readily leveling the dirt, and welcoming rodeo fans to their newest home, which it'll be very cool to see this summer when they get all up and running. And coming to our last story here, for some this is an exciting thing, for some it gives a little bit of concern. Boise's event scene might soon get a little bit of a spirited upgrade. You'll see the pun there in a second. The city council is mulling over an ordinance to allow liquor sales at special events in select parts, responding to requests from the Tree Fort Music Festival and the Boise Pride Festival, who both wanted to have more alcoholic beverages. Particularly looking at the new ordinance, it would apply to events expecting over 1,000 attendees in 17 of the city's 29 parks where beer and wines are already permitted. The proposed ordinance aims to support large events by diversifying drink options and potentially increasing revenue for the state and them. Safety measures would remain stringent, however, with events subject to the city's special event permitting process and post-event reviews. But in all, while some council members expressed enthusiasm for the economic benefits it might bring, others are seeking more information on potential safety impacts of allowing more alcohol to run more freely at these events. If approved, this change could reshape Boise's event landscape, offering attendees a broader range of alcoholic beverages choices at future festivals and gatherings. And speaking of gatherings, I have some other stuff to get to, but thank you so much for watching the Midweek Report. I sincerely hope you found it enjoyable and valuable. If you like the Midweek Report, please make sure to check out our other content on our YouTube page or Twitter, especially Substack as well. Also, if we missed any important points or provided incorrect information, please comment down below, or feel free to reach out to us via email on Twitter by tweeting us at Local Yocal Idaho. With the small team we have, we're not able to cover everything, but We do our best to cover the most important and interesting stories. Thank you for your continued support and assistance. That's all for now, and I wish you a fantastic rest of your week. Godspeed.